at the City Council work session for June 4th, 2024. First item on the agenda is the park signage and branding concept, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I wanted to get your input on a couple of things as I was trying to research signage for Da Vinci Park and reviewing signage throughout our park system. I kind of learned that we have about 4 different varieties of park signs throughout the city. And so I went to Right Light Sign, is that right, everyone? Built Right Sign. They started working on a new design, talking with Cody and talking about branding of the city and trying to kind of promote the brand. We came up with a new idea. So I wanted to run through them with you, kind of show you the new idea and just get your thoughts and input. Right now, these are kind of the 4 different styles that you see in our parks. Charles H. Welch is a one-off. That's the only one in the whole system that looks like that. We have several that look like the Riverside one with the rock and then the curving sign. And we have a whole bunch of these kind of L post. It's a 4x4 metal post with brackets coming out. You'll see in the next picture, those ones are in pretty poor shape. We actually had an accident with a staff member this year, partially due to one of these signs. They're rusting, they're kind of falling apart, and it's time to do something different. The other problem we're having with these, you can see up there we had to change a phone number. So we've got another piece of plastic or metal screwed on top of another sign. Just not the most professional look. So this is the concept that I have so far. That big one there is, I think, about 6 feet wide, 5.5 feet tall. It would be your monument style sign. It would replace the curving archy one in the stones. It would replace the L bracket metal one. Could be 2-sided. These are made out of a 2-tone plastic material. So as the lettering is routed out, it exposes that color. I just picked out a white and blue because I thought it would go with our color scheme. And then the folks at Built Right Signs designed this for us. So it's just an idea. The logo, City of Evans logo with the river, would actually be printed on a piece of metal and be raised off of that sign. Kind of like the edge signs that we have around the building. And then the little one over here to the left is an idea for what could be a rules and regulation signs. Those are the ones you see that are closer, like next to the playgrounds or next to the skateboard park. They have our standard rules and regulations on there, as well as sometimes they have park-specific things, like the skateboard park is going to have some different items on it compared to the dog park. So just an idea. I did get an estimated cost of the big sign from Built Right. They estimate this is going to cost around $8,000 to $10,000. I actually got another quote from a company that I used to work with in my old position, and they quoted that exact sign at $8,300. He did suggest, or he mentioned in his email, if we were doing more than one, that obviously that cost would come down a little bit. So we have a couple routes to go. One thing I was going to talk to you about during budget season was setting aside a little bit of money for landscape improvement, signage improvement, try to kind of pound out 1 or 2 parks every year for the next 5 years and get them up to speed. The other route is kind of the go big route where we could actually maybe go out to bid, replace all of our signs in one scoop. Roughly, we have 12 entryways and about 15 rules and regulation signs. That's a pretty rough estimate. That was me driving around one afternoon trying to figure it out. So kind of the questions are, do you like the old design? Do you like the old signs? Would you like to refreshen it with our colors and our branding? Just kind of your input is what I'm hoping for tonight. See if I should keep going down this road or if I should pump the brakes.
No, I think this is a great idea. Especially when you showed us pictures of the rust and everything, and then now finding that an employee got hurt on that, that's unfortunate. I hope that employee's all right. And then, we're having to cover up phone numbers. I think they're just kind of need to be replaced and definitely refreshed. I do like the concept of the Evans colors with the river, the blue, the red, the white. I think that looks great. The color really pops and stands out, and I really like the fact that when you talked about the edging and everything, how it really will make out and make it really appealing. I think that's, I like the concept personally, so.
And
And I would rather us, as you said, you talked to the individual, that we could probably get a cost savings if we do more than one. I mean, I think if we can find it in the budget to replace them all at once, I'd rather do that if there's some cost savings, rather than every few years doing, because we know the cost of things are just gonna go up, so it's gonna be more expensive. Say we get it for $150,000 for next year or this year, it might cost $200,000 the next. So if we can get a discount and get it done in one swoop, I'd rather do that. But
it would be a big project. I mean, we're probably talking like an all summer long 2025 type deal, but I think there'd be a lot of interested
Absolutely.
parties in the job.
Right.
One thing I kind of failed to mention on the rules and regulations sign, what we could do on that one, it could be one panel, it could be a big panel of rules and regulations, a smaller panel with phone numbers and things that might change in the future. That way we can avoid that a sign on top of a sign scenario. And as our sign department comes online and their machine gets here, the smaller sign is something he'd be able to print in-house.
Right.
So that's an advantage.
And I also think too, we've been talking about replacing possibly a playground, and we're gonna put this new playground out there that's gonna look beautiful. I think it'd be great to have a nice refreshed signage,
Yeah.
especially on something on that. But
So we have an opportunity with Da Vinci and the contingency funds there, right?
Right.
We may have an opportunity at Ridge. And then what do we have coming online? Hunter's Reserve in the next few years, North Point.
Chris and then Laura.
I agree. Oh,
Well, I was just gonna say, the thing that stands out to me is parks are supposed to be about fun. Parks are supposed to be about excitement. Our signs are drab and boring. It's the exact opposite message that I see when I think of a park. And so I like matching the branding, but I also like the fact that this is inviting. It makes you want to come to this park, So I think it's a great idea.
yes, I was going to mention that. Yes, that. I do agree. I like the branding component because I think our colors need to be just all uniform throughout the city, because if we have so many different things, it's just we need to ensure that people know that is Evans. Those are our colors and they're coming into our city. But I also want to touch on the rules and regulations, because I know that at a council meeting, I think it was 2 council meetings ago, during discussion, I did bring up since if we decide to replace these signs, the rules and regulations that are on there. I know that both I and Cody looked at the city ordinances. It doesn't say anything about not having a piñata.
Yeah.
And so I know typically when people do, granted, I don't rent them that often, but if they do they would like to do that, especially because at your home sometimes, I don't have trees in my house. And speaking of which, I should probably do that. And so there's no way for me to do something like that. So people tend to go to like a park to do that. Granted, I know with mowing and stuff like that, there's, maybe if someone were to rent, the pavilion or what have you, we can provide something that states, hey, if you have a piñata, just ensure that you pick up after yourself just because of X, Y, and Z, just to help, mitigate jawbreakers and stuff like that.
I think again, this presents an opportunity to review all of our rules and
Yes.
regulations without chopping up signs and making them look ugly. So I think that's something that would be part of the process, right? Is
Right.
reviewing all those. I know there are some safety concerns with the piñata. I mean, if you think about how hard a mower can throw a rock and shatter the windshield of a car, a piece of hard candy can come out of a mower the same way. So there are some issues there. But until we have those discussions and can review all those rules, there's no reason why now's not the perfect time if we're going to
Right.
pursue this. So.
And I do agree with that, but I also think, anything will do that. There's rocks, there's
Well,
what have you, right? But
There
just
is always ways to
Mhm.
try to mitigate your risk, right?
Yes.
We could, the piñata thing, we could try to limit it to shelters where it's on a concrete pad and it can be set
Right,
up.
exactly. And then also if someone is renting, we can say, hey, something within our system that says, are you going to do X, Y, and Z? Just ensure these things. I don't know, something, whatever happens there. But I do want to say I agree with having maybe similar width, but a smaller sign underneath. as you mentioned, in the event that, numbers were to change, and then we can do those in-house, and it's fairly easy for us to get those replaced. I do agree with that.
That's the idea, I think, on, the city of Evans portion being on a separate sheet of metal. Not only will it give the sign a little bit of 3D dimension, but it can be replaced very easily. So if it fades or if it gets vandalized or if for some reason the logo changes, we can always change that in the future.
Now the real Laura. So I agree with updating and uniformity and making them look good. I am a little dismayed that we just spent $70,000 on signage to Riverside Park, and now we want to replace it.
I think Riverside Park, the two signs, the one at 42nd and the one when you hit the parking lot, are very nice, and I think they would stay. There's the one that was in the picture on 37th. That one maybe could be a new one.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
And that one is on 37th Street. And then there's no rules and regulations coming into the park from Riverside Drive. So,
No,
I mean,
no.
I
Not until you get to like the ball field area and the playground area.
yeah. So, I mean, I think it'd be nice to have everything. I just don't want to dump one big lump sum all of a sudden now and then be replacing signs that we just purchased for $70,000. And then in 5 years, the next guy comes along and wants to redo the signs, and we're just continuously dumping money into redoing the signs. I'd like to see them done really nice up front where, maybe we can make some minor changes in the future for less expensive.
We could, I could continue to work with Built Right, maybe finalize this. I might be able to bring some samples of the materials in to show you guys sometime. Even just before a meeting, we're not taking any time, just so you can see what the materials are. Get a little more information there before we do anything major.
Well, it's kind of obvious that this has been rather helter-skelter by as the parks were put in place, that either they allowed the park designer to design the signs or whatever. And what I noticed is the browns are more for your national parks where you're going for the scenery and you kind of want to minimize the impact of signage for the view. That's one of the reasons why your guardrails in a lot of national parks and forests is it's painted brown rather than the standard galvanized stuff. The blue colors are more vibrant for a city and definitely make it pop and stand out that this park belongs to Evans. You're in Evans Park, and it's nice that when we get our sign shop up and running, that we can make some of these signs. Maybe not the bigger ones, but we can make to cut the cost on some of the signage. But I do believe it needs to be more standardized throughout the system, and this is one way to do it.
I like the 3 painted posts. That's really nice. I like the design look. The one concern I have is on the Da Vinci Park, what's the width of that? And would that encourage people to play on it, stand on it, and vandalize it? And then I also like the idea, and you guys beat me to the punch on this, but since we're gonna have an internal sign shop, having everything on that 24 by 36 is great, because if we need to change something, we just put an order into the sign master and new stuff's coming out. So that being said, why can't we make all the signs like the left sign and do it all in-house and save our taxpayers money? Because at the end of the day, do we really need to brand the park that much? Or just a small, simple sign with some rules and regulations and keep it simple?
I think it's good to brand the parks because
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
could you go back to one slide? So maybe one more. What's wrong with Freedom Park? I mean, you could dress it up a little bit, but
Well-
why do we need to advertise the park? I'm not gonna be looking for a sign or address. I wanna go enjoy the park. The sign's not gonna sell it to me.
Well, for me, I think it's about community. For me, you have a park, you advertise your park, you get it out there, you brand it, and that's what attracts people. Hey, look at this great park, look at it, and they see the aesthetics when you pull up to the park of the nice sign, and they see the nice amenities of the park. It's just a draw. To me, it's just a draw.
Mm.
It's just like, hey, wow, looks like it's a nice inviting sign. Oh wow, look at the nice inviting equipment. It's just kind of like to me it just kind of completes the picture of makes the draw to the park. That's just
The only time I care about the sign is when I'm playing Pokemon Go. I have to scan it. Other than that, I don't even care what the park's name is. I'm there for
Well,
all the other benefits that will reward me
right.
and its utilization. I'd rather see us spend more money in the park infrastructure and making it fun than a pretty sign.
now, there's been a few times where I've driven around to places, especially trying to figure out where Da Vinci Park was gonna go in.
Sure.
Where it was like, is this just an open space? Is it some, developer's land or what? So I think the signage at least tells you that, yes, this is city property. But I agree. I mean, I think the Freedom Park thing would be fine, except for maybe that curvature one to
Yeah.
put our logo in that curvature so that further down, we don't have to replace a sign unless it's damaged. But I think that's a good point. I mean, Riverside Park is a huge park.
I think it needs it.
and
It needs a big
it needs a
needs that.
welcome
It
to
needs that.
Riverside.
And it has it.
Well,
But-
you could do it for
Yeah.
like the larger
Yeah.
It
parks.
has it.
$70,000, and so
Exactly.
why replace it? That's what
Exactly.
I'm.
But Freedom Park, and if we want to change it to National Park, our internal sign guy can make it.
I mean, you could do something like that and just rebrand it with the colors and just make it a sign like that instead of the big 6 foot by, was it 5 foot or 6 foot?
There's 72.
Big
Yeah,
for
I mean,
parks.
instead of doing that, you can make a sign that's that large and just do the same thing with it, with the new colors.
And I definitely like the 3 pillars. I like
Right.
we could have those powder coated, so they're gonna stick around for a long period of time. But you're right, we don't need to be spending money every 5 years on new signage when we could buy more things and use that capital in a more effective manner for our constituents.
Well, this would come out of the Park Impact Fund anyway, wouldn't it?
It does.
Yes, we have,
Yeah, but a bucket is a bucket, so you
Right.
can take that bucket of funds and buy a sign, or you can take that bucket of funds and buy an updated play system.
But I do agree that not all parks need that huge sign.
Yeah,
Right.
Because I mean,
don't think so.
they're, I mean, in scale, they're not that big. I mean, I think something like Riverside deserves that because it's
I
like
agree.
the biggest, it's like the park of Evans. But
Well,
I
the
do like that.
Like the Charles Welch Park and the Freedom Park, they could be done with the smaller, but not the 6 foot. But I think with rebranding it, but use those bigger ones for the larger parks and use something maybe similar to what's Freedom Park or a little bit different design with the 3 pillars for something like that. Doesn't have to be the 6 foot. It could be scaled down to, I don't know, 3.
What's the largest that we can print? Is it the rules and regs sign? Like,
I have no idea.
no, we can go bigger than the rules and
well,
regs.
the reason why I wouldn't want it to be the same size as the rules and regs, I think it's just scale wise. I'm a scale person. I think slightly bigger, but something that we can do in house.
But this we wouldn't be able to do with our sign shop, would it?
So you could do something like this and do it in a
Which
metal sign with vinyl,
one?
the big one.
Okay.
You could do the big giant one,
Mhm.
but it would be a sheet of metal with vinyl stuck on it, basically, right? It won't last as long in the weather. It won't clean as easy.
Yeah, we
for
can't do,
graffiti.
yeah, because
Um,
then we're gonna be
The
spending.
one reason that I encourage them to go with this lower to the ground style, the injury that we had happened because of the L shape of that sign.
Right.
We had a piece of equipment got underneath it, and an individual got hurt, right? So I think, we could try to come up with a simpler design that doesn't leave an opening for someone to accidentally clothesline themselves walking under it or driving under it.
So that, the sign, the sign printer that we have purchased, and the laminator, I believe it has a 60-inch capacity because it's designed to print multiple, say, stop signs next to one another. So it does have capacity to be able to print these larger signs for us. And part of the laminator, or the lamination that we're buying, is an anti-graffiti lamination. So if it does get tagged with graffiti, we spray it and
Clean it up.
wipe it off pretty
Yeah,
easily.
but if it's just gonna be a piece of metal with a vinyl over it, that's, as he said, is going to deteriorate. I mean, I could see that using it for the.
I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
but that's-
I mean, they know way more about the signage.
So if we're talking the street signs, so, depending on which material we would get, but I believe there's one, it's the diamond material, and it's got a 10 to 15-year warranty on it based on the lamination that we use.
Right.
And it's, I mean, it's for the higher UV, so I do think that if we were looking at the sign shop creating this, I do think that there's some potential that we could have longevity out of a sign if that's what we wanted to do. And then you put the anti-graffiti lamination on that, and that helps protect it, you know, even more.
By no means am I saying scrap this,
Right.
but let's do at least a cost analysis and see if we are
Well,
hiring an
I like-
employee to work the sign shop,
And who would
utilize
build,
those assets.
who would build the pillars then?
That we can outsource.
I'm pretty sure that these ones, the frames were built by a contractor. And then the actual sign was done by Bill Wright. And I'm guessing we installed them.
Let's, don't scrap it, look into it more, and, you know, as Councilmember Crabtree said, let's do kind of a cost analysis and see what kind of looks
Okay.
we can get out of it. But I think a nice refresh.
Yeah, like especially longevity. Yeah, factor that in there too.
So what I'm kind of hearing is maybe look at alternative materials, see if we could do a similar frame, but
Yeah.
with an in-house panel that we could
Right.
print in-house. Or maybe come up with a simpler, smaller one, you know, bigger than the rules and regulation, but similar in design,
Right.
so that we could have the colors of the brand and the correct logos and those things.
Right, no, but the color scheme,
Possibly not a giant monument sign.
Right,
everywhere.
right.
yeah, but the color scheme and everything looks great. I do really think that looks fantastic.
So that helps. I mean, it gives me something to work on with these folks, so I appreciate it a lot.
Meanwhile, the Riverside sign that you were talking about could probably just be refurbished with a nice power wash. It has not been power washed since it was in the flood.
That one there, the Arky one, the rock.
No, the one on 37th Street.
That one.
Power wash and some plants.
So we've got some plants
Cheap.
in there now. We got plants in there today, as well as over on 42nd Street.
Okay.
Hopefully when they fill in, they'll stand out a little bit more.
All right, I'll power wash it after the season is over then.
And,
Good. Oh, sorry,
and depending on the name of the park, because the Charles H. Welch Park needs a wider sign just because of how many words and letters there are in a sign. So some of them are gonna have to, they can't all be the same size. They're gonna have to be adjusted for the park name a little bit. But most of them can I'm assuming, can be approximately the same size.
Why don't I continue to work on it and bring you back something?
I
That
like
would
where
be
you're-
great, because I think also font wise, like everything should look the same font wise. And then even the kerning should like also be the same on all of them.
So the two fonts you see, the big Riverside one and the Charles H. Welch, are kind of a recommended sign font. You can see it really good when you're driving by, is what the
Right,
sign's
so
gonna
just
be.
again, uniformity, if we're gonna use the one font for everything.
This font is one of the approved fonts in our
Okay.
brand kit.
What is that name, what is the name of that one, do you know?
What's that?
The name of that font?
I would have to look at my computer.
Okay, no. So is this gonna come back to a work session?
Sure.
Okay, just because I think if we can, because of the rules and regulations, if we can come back and then kind of approve those, So it's like good to
yeah.
go.
Once-
Okay.
once- once
I
we
think the
get
idea, I mean, first thing is figure out what we
What we
want.
want,
And then
and
if
then
we're
we
gonna
can
go
go
out to bid on a full replacement, we'll have all winter to be discussing rules and regulations.
Okay.
We have time.
Cool.
All right,
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate the.
Thank you so
direction.
much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, next up is the July 4th illegal fireworks enforcement plan.
That's coming up.
Hear from staff on that.
I know. Yes.
Mirrors. So I'm kind of wondering what he's gonna say.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hello.
Oh,
I apologize for my attire. I left a conference.
you're good.
Oh, you
Got back
look
here
very
shortly. I'm-
nice.
I'm very formally dressed this evening. So our item tonight before you from the police department is our annual 4th of July enforcement plan. And if it'll be in your packet, council members that have been here for the last couple of 4th of Julys, you'll see it's very similar to our previous plans. And we've also continued to incorporate council recommendations for what council wants to see out there, specifically with things like signage and the education side of the equation, mailers. So we're continuing with those strategies. We're gonna have 7 signboards out this year. I think we're just leasing 2 of them, if memory serves. We've done the flyers. The flyers have gone out. Dan is working on social media for our residents to remind them of what's legal, what's illegal. And for council members that have not been part of these discussions in the past, the PD's response continues this year as it has historically. We cancel leave on the 4th of July for night shift and overnight shifts. So everybody that is available to work will be working. We also staff up overtime shifts for the 5 days leading up to and including the 4th of July because that's when our call load's the highest. Officers are directed, as usual, to concentrate on those areas where we're getting the most complaints. And historically, that's our District 2, where most of the complaints come in. So officers will be instructed to focus some efforts there. We will attempt to service every call. We get a lot of them. They'll probably start very soon if
They
they
have.
haven't started already, right?
Like they
So the way that these things works, especially for our new council members, when dispatch gets a call, they don't put it in the computer and send it to an officer. They simply air the call and clear it. And they're doing that for all cities. So when dispatch receives a call for fireworks complaint, they just say, hey, Evans, you've got one here. Then they clear the call and they leave it to us as we're able to service the call. So then officers will respond and attempt to service the call. The challenge with fireworks, as I've explained in the past, is the probable cause level for arrest is no different than it is for any other crime, right? We need the same level of probable cause to charge with fireworks. So when people see a police car pull down the street, all they have to do is step away from their fireworks, and it's really hard to even show possession if they're laying in the street. So officers either need a complainant to sign a complaint and say, I saw that one, light that firework, right?
Tammy.
How can we do it? And I'll testify in court. Or the officer normally has to witness the actual possession of or the lighting of an illegal firework. So it's always a challenge, but when officers are put in that situation, they are instructed to do zero tolerance, which means that we're going to charge them criminally into municipal court, and we will seize all illegal fireworks that the officers come across. So we usually seize bucketfuls every year anyway, not always with a criminal prosecution, but we do seize illegal fireworks when we come across them. So we've got about 60 hours of overtime shifts scheduled this year. Our staffing levels are nowhere near where they need to be. We're still down quite a few officers. So the way we work it is leaves are canceled, and then we put up sign-up sheets for overtime. And officers can work these overtime shifts. And if we fill them, we'll fill them. If we can't fill them, the on-duty officers are going to have to service the calls as the best they can. So that's kind of where we're at. We've got a couple of shifts already filled. I didn't check with the lieutenant today when I got back from the conference. But last time I spoke to him, I think we had a couple of shifts filled already. And we'll hopefully get a few more of them filled. So we have some officers out there to service the calls. And yeah, let the festivities begin. So happy to answer any questions or.
Especially with 4th of July starting Thursday.
right?
You know, this everybody can take Friday, so it's gonna be going all.
So you may or may not know this information right off the top of your head, but what was the calls that we ran in 22 versus 23? Have we noticed that?
I don't have 2022 numbers, I have 2023 numbers. We had 87 dispatch complaints and 8 citations were issued.
8 citations at $2,000 a citation?
It's to the judge's
$500.
discretion. It
It's
can go up
usually-
to 2,650, I think, which is what we need to make sure our signage says, because last year, some signs, some of the information went out with 2,650, some was at 2,000, so.
Right.
If it says 2,650, when it was like $500, people didn't care,
Usually,
but it's the judge's discretion.
usually it's, say, 2,000.
Okay, so that's,
1,000 suspended, or they'll do all of it, 1,500 suspended and give them $500. And if they do it again, then they get the full.
Yeah.
that's still 87 calls though.
$4,000 on average for 8.
So I guess I'm a little confused with one of your statements. I think it was last month you said that our police department was fully staffed. And then now you're saying we aren't fully staffed?
Well, yes. We have one officer in FTO, a certified officer in FTO, just started our in-house academy, and we have 5 officers recruits who are pretty much on the ground being trained. They're going to start the academy in August. So none of those bodies I can field, right? So I have the bodies, but I don't have the sworn officers yet. We're still sitting at 32 sworn, 31 sworn, and we have all those other people hired, and they're working in training, but none of them can be fielded yet.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
So all of this is reactive. How can we, this is a big, long Hail Mary. How can we be proactive? Especially unless we shut down the Wyoming-Colorado border. So how can
internet.
we,
Wouldn't help.
And the internet.
and the internet,
And only that,
I
we have
think-
pockets that are Weld County that people think are Evans. So, yeah, there's that
it's
too.
illegal throughout the state of Colorado
It's
to have
the
any
state of Colorado.
airborne fireworks. I understand why, but is there anything that the city can do?
I think it's gone down, my personal opinion, since we've been here and we've started to do some of these things.
Yes.
There's been a noticeable difference.
Okay.
I mean, a noticeable difference. It sounded previously like we were in Iraq. And now,
Yeah. Been there
So Ward
25 years.
2,
yes.
Ward 2,
Yeah,
maybe
it's,
you
it's
both
not,
can, you
yeah,
know,
it's
do
not as
something.
bad as it used to be.
And I think that with what we're doing some mitigation on that. Other than, like you said, nobody, everybody getting their packages and cars looked at with fireworks, sniffing dogs and stuff. I don't think we're gonna be able to do much more than hand out
What you see is-
information. It would be interesting to see though. I know Eaton has a no fireworks policy. I mean,
Oh, that'd be downers.
if you got the kids out in the front yard with sprinklers, the little sparklers,
Yeah, or little ground
they're the fountains or something, and by all means, that's what we're not trying to curtail. We want the family, it's 4th of July, we want everybody to have
We
fun.
don't want the mortars.
We just don't want the mortars.
At 2
So-
o'clock in the morning.
Well, it's also, the biggest reason is a fire hazard. But I was just
Right.
curious if there was anything that we could do to be proactive. It's education.
There,
On the law enforcement side,
Yeah.
we put unmarked cars out. But
Just
people-
wait and bait.
Yeah, and people are savvy. I mean,
Mhm.
you're not going to believe this, but there are actually blocks that put out a big speaker with a police scanner on it. And when the call comes
Yeah.
out, they hear it and they'll clear the street.
Yeah, my neighborhood goes quiet.
That's happened.
Wow.
Okay. So, with
Yeah,
that
county.
kind of insanity,
County don't
it
care.
goes to my concern
Yeah.
that I just think maybe we should talk about. So we had 87 complaints, 8 tickets, made couple grand, whatever, okay? What about officer safety? Because the thing that I really worry about with 4th of July is I don't like the flying fireworks. It's a nerve-wracking night for me because I'm afraid my house is going to burn down. But I'm sitting here thinking, you guys are out there, you're asking for more people, and all you're going to be interacting with primarily is people who've been drinking all day and now we're launching military style type mortars.
And that's a legitimate observation. We encounter a lot of violence when we deal with these folks. We had a call recently where there was probably in excess of 10 police cars we called for help from everybody because of one guy. And his family came out and neighbors came out, and we had to do a 10-car plus response to calm the situation. Yeah, these things get really out of control. Because what we hear is what you're describing, right? Oh, this is what we're spending our tax dollars on. This is all you guys have to do is mess with us because we're celebrating 4th of July. And they really amp it up. The guys really try hard to de-escalate because we don't want to get into a fight over fireworks. But they do get very, very
Oh, yeah, they do.
Well, I think that's with anything though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we have our police, and that's why they've got their mace and their taser and their gun and stuff like that. I mean, because in my opinion, I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying, but if they aren't willing to go and address some fireworks, then are they going to be there for me when I have a real issue, like someone, wanting to accost me? I mean, I that's what we're doing is we're paying our police to create safety in our neighborhoods, and unfortunately, that's part of some of their jobs is to be able to handle these people.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that we do see
Right.
raised levels
escalating,
of
right.
anxiety and
Right.
agitation
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
as you pointed out, they're partying all day. They got their neighbors out there, barbecue beer, and people aren't thinking clearly when the officer shows up.
Sorry, Frank, you've been raising your hand. I didn't see that. Sorry, go ahead.
His finger.
Miss Finger, sorry.
Watch it. Since we have drone capability, what are the implications for trying to use drones to monitor the situation?
Thought about that much. That's a possibility, I suppose. I hate to see my drone get shot down on a fireworks complaint. But
Seriously. I know.
Make sure the pilot's a good
No,
pilot
that-
at night.
Where's the cheaper drum?
I don't know
Yes,
whether
the
there's some other
cost.
legal implications for you, for if you were to use something like that, so.
Well, there
That's
would be
why I
some.
was
I mean,
inquiring.
if people are firing like on their private property in their backyards, there's probably some Fourth Amendment issues that we would have to address rather than flying a drone over a fence to go take a peek. But, yeah, it's a powerful tool. Haven't really thought about using it for this because all we're going to do is drive around and see fireworks everywhere. We're going to fly around and see
That's right.
fireworks everywhere. But who knows? We may try that at some point. I don't think I've got the staff to do it this year to send up a drone even for a little while. But
It would be fun just to say we did it.
fun.
Right.
Might get some good footage.
Well,
I
not
know,
even not for the
that's
footage,
true.
but just to say that we have the capability that we might be using our drones this night, which might
Yeah.
make people a little bit more nervous too. It might not be as bold.
Big Brother's watching.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting because it's true. It's something new that people didn't think about. They're like, dang, that's a good idea. Good idea. But maybe not even just utilizing to see, like, if you're flying it around, where's the concentration of fireworks? You know what I mean? It's just to give you data and then eventually use it as you will. But
And the reason why I brought up the proactive side is I didn't know if this was even a possibility because the Colorado state law says that you cannot have aerial units. But for years I've thought, can we just section off an area like a large park and have the fire department there and have a structured launch your fireworks in this controlled area? I don't know. People want to blow stuff up. Let's at least let them take a finger off in a park. I don't know.
Bye-bye, Tanner.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to figure out a different
That might be a
solution.
good idea to explore in the
no,
in
but
the
that's a
future.
good idea.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate what you guys are doing, the effort you
Yeah.
put forth as always. I was actually going to ask what Fred brought up. I was actually going to say, well, what about the drones? Could you use that? But no, but
Just that asset.
I appreciate all the effort you guys put forth on this. I know it's really hard, being out there on 4th of July and dealing with all the people and all those calls and maybe getting a handful of tickets, but I do appreciate everything that you do to at least try to mitigate the circumstances, so.
And the public signs I appreciate as well, because I thought you got a $2,000 fine. So even when my young adult boys were like, let's buy fireworks, I'm like, nope,
I say Drew's
'Cause I'll have
not
to
here,
pay
yeah.
the fine. I'm not paying $2,000 for you guys to launch 6 mortars.
Usually it's the maximum fine and they suspend all but 500 of it. And then if you violate it within whatever time frame that they come up with, then you get assessed the full
But
amount.
the message is solid.
Small.
It is
Because it
solid,
makes me
yes,
think it's
correct.
$2,000, regardless of what actually happens on the back end.
Because that's no guarantee. I mean,
It's no
Yeah.
guarantees.
Yeah,
Usually,
If you
but
come
I
in
know
and you're a
you
jerk to the judge, I'm
There's a
sure he's gonna
potential.
go.
You dispatch 5 officers, you're gonna get dinged
Right.
$2K.
Right.
But none of this offsets our overtime costs.
No.
And that's why I'd like to see it.
Well-
It came
kinda
out
does.
even. It was
Usually
even last year and
it
the
was
year
even.
before.
Last year it was
Yep.
even.
Well, I was shocked when I went to court, because I went to see what who the guy was that was setting these off. Had been doing it for 7 years before I finally got him. And then setting off more
Where's the
at
cop?
2
Don't
and
you
3
think?
o'clock
Proactive, see?
in the morning, and then
I think I
to
found my
find
guy
out
too.
that they only fined him $500, and of course, naturally, he was none of them that appeared in court that whole session could pay anything, so
Right.
it didn't make any difference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate your
We
time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, well, it is 6:41, so we'll take a short break and we'll start promptly at 7.